Of all the things that hurt, I'm still not sure what cut deeper, the lie itself, or realizing I might have deserved it a little. You grow up thinking family love stands above everything else. That parents don't deceive you. That siblings don't use you. Until they do. And when they do, they smile while doing it. My name's Mario Ferrer. I'm 21 years old, and I play for the first team of a big club in Madrid. I won't say which one, not to be mysterious, but because it doesn't matter. What matters is what happened off the field. What happened at home. When I got promoted from the reserves a year ago, everything changed so fast I didn't even see it coming. I went from barely affording rent for a shared flat in Lavapiés to signing a six-figure contract and having people wait for my autograph outside the Bernabeu. My face was on sports news, my name popped up on the radio, and my phone filled with messages that never used to come. My parents, Javier and Diana, came from Latin America 20 years ago. They worked hard, like all of ours do, my father in construction, my mother cleaning houses and caring for the elderly. We grew up knowing exactly how much everything cost. So when things started going well for me, it felt natural to give back. I bought them a car, replaced the furniture, paid for my sister Carol's college, helped with my brother Carlos's wedding. I did it gladly. It felt right to return what I'd been given. But one day I learned there's a very thin line between gratitude and servitude. Last summer we planned our first real family vacation. Not the usual trip to the mountains or driving to Valencia. No. This time it would be the real thing, a week in Italy, all expenses paid by me. A seaside hotel, direct flights, guided tours, the best I could find. I was excited, mostly for them. I wanted to see my mother carefree, my father smiling without having to fake it. And, if I'm honest, there was another reason. Yvette. My childhood love. She'd been living in Rome for 3 years. We were inseparable as teenagers before my life turned into a whirlwind of practices, travel, and interviews. I hadn't seen her since, but we stayed in touch. She was that voice that showed up in my earphones at midnight, when the world went quiet and only your heart is still awake. I'd mentioned the trip to her, half joking, half hoping, and she said, in that soft way she had of speaking, laughing before finishing her sentences, that maybe we could meet. Just a coffee, Mario. For old time's sake. I smiled. A coffee. Sure. We both knew it wouldn't just be a coffee. My parents knew it too. The week before the trip, everything seemed fine. My mother was making lists, my father checking suitcases, my sister asking for my card to cover some expenses. The house smelled of sunscreen and excitement. I trained every morning at Valdebebas, but in the afternoons I'd stop by home to help with the details. I was happy. Completely unaware. 2 days before the flight, the coach called me into his office. His tone was firm, the kind that leaves no room for discussion. Ferrer, the club wants you to stay in Madrid this month. No travel. Active rest, gym work, and appearances at club events. You're part of the new campaign, we need you visible. I told him everything was already arranged. Family vacation. No training camp, no preseason yet. He raised an eyebrow. Your father already spoke with the club. Said you agreed. I froze. Walked out of his office not knowing whether to laugh or scream. When I called my father, his calm tone disoriented me. Yes, son, we talked to them. It's for your own good. You can't take risks now. You're starting something big. What about the trip? What do I do with the tickets? We'll go anyway. Everything's already paid for. You stay. Rest. You need it. My blood boiled, not because of the money, but because of the decision. Because of how they made it for me, like I was still a child. My mother tried to soften it the next day. Sweetheart, don't be angry. We thought it was best. Besides, that girl, Yvette, she'd just distract you. You need to stay focused. That's when it clicked. It wasn't about football. It was a cruel joke disguised as protection. They knew I'd see Yvette, and they didn't want me to. They knew she mattered, and they chose to manipulate me instead of trusting me. That night I couldn't sleep. I sat on the balcony of my flat, staring at the rooftops of Lavapies, with the sound of bars closing and the smell of stale beer rising from the street. I thought about calling Yvette, telling her everything, but shame stopped me. How do you tell someone your own family lied to keep you away? In the end, I did nothing. I let them go. Watched them leave for the airport, happy, carrying the suitcases I'd paid for, the tickets I'd booked, the hotel I'd chosen. My mother hugged me with tears in her eyes, my father patted my back, my sister promised to send pictures. I just nodded, watching a scene that no longer belonged to me. That week, Madrid felt like a desert. No hard training, no family noise, no Yvette. Just me, my thoughts, and an uneasy silence. I wandered aimlessly down Gran Via, watching the lights, the crowds that seemed to move without gravity. I sat in tiny cafes where they still serve coffee in glass cups. I watched couples argue, tourists take selfies, street musicians playing boleros in the Callao metro. Everything looked the same except me. That was the first time I truly felt used. I remembered every transfer I'd ever made, Carol's tuition, the payments for Carlos's wedding hall, the monthly deposits for my parents. Every single one, always given without asking for anything in return. And suddenly, I understood it wasn't gratitude they felt. It was dependence. A comfortable kind of dependence. I'd become their walking ATM, wearing a signed jersey. One Sunday, I went to eat alone at the Mercado de San Miguel. I ordered a glass of wine, some jamon iberico, and a plate of calamari. Across from me sat a group of guys laughing, footballers from other clubs. I recognized one. They were talking about vacations, parties, girls. I listened and thought, they're living the life I paid for, just not for myself. That same afternoon, sitting on my terrace, I made a quiet decision. I wouldn't pay for anything again. No more tuition fees. No more weddings. No more gifts. Not out of resentment, but out of respect. Because love that can be bought isn't love anymore. When they came back from Italy, their suitcases were full and their mouths overflowing with joy. It was incredible, Mario. You have to see the pictures. They showed me everything, the Colosseum, the sea in Naples, dinners under orange sunsets. In none of them did it look like I was missing. I smiled. Said nothing. Not about Yvette, not about the lie. I just waited. 2 weeks later, my sister asked for money for her next semester. I told her I couldn't. That it was time she learned to handle her own expenses. She got angry. Called me selfish. My mother tried to mediate, my father stayed silent. Carlos, the eldest, sent me a message. Bro, you're changing. Don't let fame get to your head. That's when I realized family love has a price. And I had stopped paying it. They told me love doesn't disappear, it just changes shape. I think sometimes it turns into an invoice. And that invoice arrives with a little message, a sad emoji, and an I love you at the end, like a bow on a gift that isn't one. The first to knock on my door was Carol. She came to the flat with a folder from the university and that cheap shampoo smell that always took me back to when I used to walk her to school, hand in hand, through Lavapies. She opened the folder, showed me papers, dates, a tuition budget highlighted in pink. It's my last year, Mario, she said, with that kind of tone that sounds like a command. We already talked about this. We talked about it when I still thought we were a team, I said. Aren't we anymore? I didn't answer. Walked to the kitchen. The flat was silent except for the hum of the fridge and a neighbor playing the piano badly, offbeat. I poured myself a glass of water. Looked her in the eye. And did exactly what I decided to do, no long explanations, no yelling, no old guilt. I'm not paying, Carol. Why? Because I'm not. It wasn't violence. It was a wall. She waited. Crossed her arms. University isn't a whim, she said. Neither was your trip to Italy. You paid for that because you wanted to. Exactly, I said. Just like now, I don't want to. The blow didn't come from my hands, but from calm. That clean kind of coldness that, when you see it in someone else, you mistake for cruelty. To me, it felt like hygiene. She pressed her lips together, clumsily stuffed the papers back into the folder, and left without fully closing the door. I heard her steps down the stairs, the echo, someone shouting from below, "Close it properly, please." The building's old, its walls still listen. Then came Javier and Diana, my parents, together. They asked me to come over. Their flat, the one I helped renovate in Usera, near a Chinese bar that makes the best noodles in the neighborhood. I went on a Tuesday, after training at Valdebebas. Still smelled of rubber and sweat from the pitch. My mother was making coffee, my father was going through a notebook of expenses no one had asked him to. The TV was muted on one of those afternoon shows where someone's always crying over love. A mirror, really. I didn't sit down. Preferred to stay standing, staring at the fake flower in the center of the table. Mario, my love, my mother began. About your sister, look, it's her future. I thought mine mattered too, I said, without venom. And yet, when it came time to decide, you decided for me. It was for your own good, my father muttered, I still fixed on the notebook. About the club. The club doesn't give you the right to speak for me. Or to cancel my plans. Or to lie to me. Silence. The coffee gurgled sadly, that sound it makes when it's almost done. My mother set the spoon down. Looked for my face. Found stone. We can fix this, she said softly. We were thinking, in December, after the cup, maybe a family vacation. All of us together. You pick the destination. You pay, but you pick. I smiled to one side. No. Son. No, I repeated. No vacations. Not with me. My father finally looked up. He's a man who learned young not to cry. He has that hardness of someone who's lifted bricks with his bare hands. He's nothing like me. Or maybe he is, and that's what I can't stand. Let's not make a scene, Mario, he said. We're family. Being family isn't a form of blackmail, I replied. If you have to remind me every time you ask for something, it's not love you're asking for, it's credit. My mother sighed, the kind of sigh that wrinkles plastic bags. She placed her hand on my arm. Don't be so harsh. You know how things are. You know your sister's struggling. You know about Carlos's wedding. Of course I do. Because I was the one paying for it. I left before they could ask for promises. Took the stairs, stepped into the street, and breathed in that air from Avenida de Marcelo Usera, fried food, shouted fruit prices, and gasoline mixed together. I put on my headphones but didn't play any music. I just needed silence with a shape. I walked to the metro. Line 6, the circular one, the one that spins like a clock that never moves forward. I got on, let it carry me. Got off at Arganzuela Planetario. Crossed the park, walked into the Matadero. Sat on a cold bench and watched a group of students arguing about film or pretending to. I liked their tone, passion without money attached. A city, when it doesn't demand anything of you, becomes kind. When it knows you too well, it turns into a mother standing at your bedroom door, reminding you that you owe yourself to the house. Madrid has that look. That week, my phone became an animal that wouldn't stop scratching. Messages from Carlos. Bro, the wedding hall's asking for the second payment. I'll send you the manager's number. Man, don't leave me hanging. The date's in March. Invitations are already out. Don't be like this, bro, don't do this to me. I didn't answer. Not yes, not no. I opened the chat, read it, left it unseen. My silent revenge. I, who used to rush to fix everything, now stood still. And though it might look like indifference, standing still isn't nothing, it's a form of action. Letting go of what you've been holding forces it to hit the ground. At training, my head felt clean like a freshly watered pitch. I tackled strong, measured, thinking of nothing but the ball. The fitness coach said I looked focused. I laughed to myself. Some kinds of focus are born from exhaustion. One afternoon, after leg training, I wandered through Chambéry and stopped at a tiny terrace 2 streets from Ponzano, that bar-lined area where everyone orders wine like it's part of an audition. I asked for a coffee and a glass of water. Pulled out my phone. Read again the last message Yvette had sent days before, during my so-called vacation in Madrid. If you're in Rome, call me. If not, take care. Be happy, even just a little. Those words slipped through me like a breeze through a half-closed window. There was nothing sexual in them, but something dangerous all the same, the hint of an alternate life. I closed my eyes for a second. Imagined her laughter resting on a table in Trastevere, my hand steering us through the city on a motorbike. Opened them again, and I was back in Chambéry, watching a couple argue about whether she should move closer to work. The waiter set another round on the next table. The street went on being itself. That night, I went home and made myself a minimalist dinner, a plain omelette, sliced tomato, bread. I ate standing up, looking out the window toward Embajadors. I didn't want music, or a show, or football on TV. I wanted the quiet sounds of other people's lives. Then came the knock on the door. It was Carlos, holding a folder, wearing the desperate look of someone still convinced of his own charm. He'd always been the handsome one, the funny one, the guy who got favors with 2 jokes. There was never a day he didn't get something for free. He came in without asking and dropped onto the sofa. He smelled of strong cologne and anxiety. "Don't mess with me, Mario," he began, "no warm-up. You haven't replied in days." "I'm replying now. Don't start with the cold act. This is the wedding. You know what it means." "I do." He opened the folder, showing me budgets, dates, a picture of the venue with warm lights and white flowers. "You already paid the deposit," he said, tapping the paper with his finger. "We just need this payment. If we don't do it this week, we lose the place. Invitations are already sent, man. What am I supposed to do? Find another place. Don't be ridiculous. Or cancel. Are you out of your mind?" I looked at him gently. I'd rarely used that kind of gentleness with him. Rarely wanted to. "Carlos, you've been lied to." "By who?" "You. You lied to yourself. You thought I'd keep holding everything up forever. We talked about this." "Yes. Back then. With different facts. Before you all decided for me." "This again, the Italy thing." "Yes. The Italy thing again." He stood up, pacing the room like a caged animal. "You can't make a life decision over a tantrum," he said, and that hit a nerve. "It's not a tantrum. It's discernment. It's punishment." "Maybe. What did I do then? Tell me." "You liked the plan as long as someone else paid for it," I said. "Maybe it's your turn to live a little empty-handed. Nobody dies from that." He froze. I watched him swallow hard. Watched him hate me and understand me at the same time. I couldn't tell which was worse. "They'll never forget this, Mario," he said quietly. "Let them remember. They'll say you changed." "I did," I said. "They changed me." We didn't shout. It was worse, we spoke clearly. He left without shutting the door. That building again, hearing everything. The following days came like a string of small scenes. With my mother, the sweet kind of blackmail. "Are you really going to let your sister quit school? Are you going to make your brother look irresponsible in front of his fiancé's family? Is that what you want people saying about you? I thought of our walks through El Retiro when I was little, my mother telling me people talk no matter what you do, that it's their job to talk. I was 10 when I once overheard her tell a neighbor, people talk because they've got nothing better to do. Now she was saying the opposite. Memory bends conveniently when needed. With my father, it was raw reality. You can do it, son. It's nothing for you. Why make it a drama? Because now, for me, it is something, it's a boundary. You've never gone without. Neither have you, thanks to me. I started moving through my days differently. Trained earlier. Showered at the club, then walked down Concha Espina toward Castellana. Sometimes I'd sit with a coffee outside Nuevos Ministerios, watching suited executives with tight jackets and black backpacks. I wondered if any of them had ever drawn a line for themselves. If saying no breaks you inside. I found out it doesn't. You empty out a little, yes, but then that emptiness turns into clean air. I took refuge in small routines. Bought fruit at the Anton Martin market, greeted the butcher who calls me Mr. Went to a tiny theater showing films in their original language near Plaza de España. I almost cried at a scene where no one cried, a woman carrying a box too heavy for her. That detail pierced me. It wasn't tragedy. It was discomfort. Life is full of that. One night, the club asked me to attend a promo event on Gran Via, in a shopping center filled with cold lights and the smell of expensive perfume. I went, out of courtesy. Photos with kids, signing shirts, a host far too enthusiastic. I smiled just enough. When it ended, I slipped down Montera, turned toward Seoul, bought a vanilla ice cream, and walked without looking at anyone. I felt like the tourist center and I were two different cities. Mine lives slightly in the shadows. I won't lie, there were nights when guilt hit me hard. I caught myself picturing Carol's face, Carlos's eyes. Imagined a simple or postponed wedding. Felt the sting of the culture, siblings help each other, if you can, you must. But then I'd remember that office door, my father lying to the coach for me, my mother smiling while pushing the trip that left me behind. And the guilt would dissolve, like sugar in coffee that's too hot, gone in a second, just a swirl of foam, then nothing. The final blow didn't come from them, it came from someone else. One afternoon, I got a call from an unknown number. It was Sergio, an old family friend, the kind of man who always knows where the line is, and how to cross it without getting caught. "Mr. Ferrer, how's life?" he began, with that oily tone that made me laugh. "Been talking with your mother. She asked me to lend a hand." "With what?" "With a little proposal. Listen, there's this agency organizing a trip for influencers to Ibiza in September. All expenses paid, for you and your family. Villa, yacht, everything. You just have to post a couple of stories tagging the sponsor. Easy stuff. What do you say?" I understood immediately. What they couldn't get from me directly, they try to get through a side door. Another favor, this time lit up in neon. Another way to turn me into what I never wanted to be, a credit card with legs, now upgraded with a filter. "No, thanks," I said. "I don't do sponsored vacations." "It'd be good for you, champ. Family image, relatable vibes, the club would love it." "No." "You sure?" "I'll talk to your father and we'll sort it." "Don't talk to my father about my business. Talk to me." "And I'm saying no." I hung up. My hand trembled, barely. A few minutes later, a message from my mother. "Honey, Sergio told us about Ibiza. How exciting. Can we check the dates?" I didn't answer. Sent a 4-second voice note. "I'm not going. Don't go either." Then I laced up my sneakers and went running. Down Ronda de Valencia, past the Circo Price, across toward Atocha. The sunset stained everything a dirty orange. The asphalt smelled like a tired day. I was tired too, but not the same kind of tired. This one felt almost healthy, the kind that comes from carrying a decision long enough to finally set it down. Some nights I allowed myself small luxuries. The theater, for instance. I went to the Lara, in Malasana, to see a play about siblings who couldn't understand each other. I left with my chest loosened. Walked down Carretera Alta de San Pablo, cut toward Tribunal, and slipped into a bar with warm lights and vinyl music. Ordered a beer. A dusty bolero played, and couples whispered like the city itself had asked them to lower their voices. There was a woman at the bar, short hair, denim jacket. She looked at me with a clean kind of curiosity, the kind that doesn't recognize a jersey. We talked about stupid things, rent prices, the gruff kindness of waiters, the cold seeping in from the door. We didn't exchange numbers. I liked that. For once, I could just be another man. Sometimes freedom is exactly that, not having to be anyone special. At home, the pressure began to rise. Carol became an expert in passive-aggressive messaging, links to scholarships, screenshots of missed opportunities, phrases like, "Such a pity some people don't value education," no names, but clear enough. Carlos played the pathetic card, photos of the venue, the suit, the vows at the church. I realized both of them had decided to take what was private and make it public. They were pushing me onto the stage so everyone could know the footballer brother wouldn't cough up the money. And I didn't care. That was the real change. I didn't care if they talked. I wasn't competing to seem good anymore. I was competing to be at peace. One afternoon, my father asked for a man-to-man talk. I agreed. We met at a bar in La Latina, sticky wooden tables, TVs bolted to the wall showing a sports panel where men shout opinions about things they never lived. We ordered 2 coffees. He went straight to the point, as he always does when he feels control slipping. "Son, you've gone too far. Maybe. You've humiliated your sister." "No. I took away a privilege. You made your brother look like a fool. He managed that on his own. We're family. You never get tired of saying that." The waiter dropped the bill early, as if he wanted us gone. My father stared at it but didn't touch it. Then he looked at me, like I was the waiter of his life. "Listen," he said. I called the coach. "Talk to him about your attitude. You need to refocus." "Don't ever talk to him about me again," I said quietly. "Never. I just want what's best." "No. You want control. You're losing yourself in that girl, Yvette. I didn't even see her." "Good thing." A heavy silence followed. On the TV, a retired player was saying that talent without discipline is useless. I laughed to myself. My father took his last sip. "When did you stop being my son?" he asked. "When I stopped being your employee." He stood up. I wanted to touch him, but didn't. We left without saying goodbye. He paid something that must have stung. I didn't, and that stung too. Every act has a cost. We all pay in our own way. Soon, I began noticing shifts elsewhere. The club looked at me differently, still professional, but less available for favors. A radio show called, offering a friendly interview. I declined. They invited me to a charity gala, all lights and cameras. I went, but stayed in the background. I discovered you can still help quietly, no selfies, no tags. I donated to a soup kitchen in Lavapiés and spent 2 mornings peeling potatoes. No one recognized me. By 10, my hands smelled of onion like a silent metal pin to my skin. It was past midnight when my phone woke me, a long voice message. My mother, crying. She said the kind of things that crack people open, that the family was falling apart, that ever since I'd started earning more, everything had changed, that money had made us cold, that all she ever wanted was to keep us together. She mentioned Yvette, as always, like a ghost that needs a prayer to keep it from coming inside. She said, "That girl doesn't understand you. We do." I listened all the way through, face buried in the pillow, damp with sleep and half-light. I cried a little, but not from guilt. It was nostalgia, the kind of crying that doesn't ask to fix anything. In the morning, I wrote her back. I love you. I'm here. I'm not a bank account you log into with a password. I'm your son. I'm staying, but differently. That word, differently. It doesn't sound heroic, but it saves you. Carol came next, this time with a folder that didn't hold numbers but a university paper. She read me a paragraph about autonomy. She did it without irony, without realizing. I laughed. So did she. We drank tea. I told her that, if she wanted, I could introduce her to a friend who worked to pay for her master's degree. At first, the idea bothered her, then it settled. She saw the full map. There are roads that run parallel to the comfortable ones. She left with less anger. Not with love, but without trenches. Carlos went the other way, full radical. He posted an old photo of us on Instagram, me in a cheap kit, him smiling wide. The caption read, "Some people forget where they come from." He didn't tag me. Didn't have to. Screenshots flooded in from everywhere. I sat on my bed, read it 10 times. It tasted like something old. I decided not to answer. Days later, I heard he'd switched to a smaller wedding hall. I celebrated in silence. Not revenge, just balance. At Valdebebas, a veteran teammate placed a hand on my shoulder in the locker room. We don't talk much. You just know when the wounded animal beside you has the same scar. It's rough, kid, he said. They'll take offense at everything. You just play. The rest settles. Does it hurt much along the way? I asked. It hurts where it should. I believed him. Some truths don't need arguments. I started writing small notes in a notebook. Don't promise. Don't justify. Don't explain twice. I stuck them on the fridge door. Every morning I'd read them before leaving. Mental hygiene, like brushing your teeth. I gave myself another habit, walking at night. I'd wander down through La Latina, cross Cava Baja with its noise of tapas and tourists, climb toward Opera, pass through Arenal, and watch people going into the Teatro Real. Other people's elegance deflates the ego. No one asked for photos, no one owed me anything. Sometimes I sat a while in Santo Domingo, watching the motorbikes drift past. Or I'd take line 1 from Tirso de Molina to Sol, just to stand in the crowd and feel like another pixel. Anonymity is a rare luxury when the world thinks it knows you. And one night, just when the water seemed to be calming, when I thought I'd found a new way of being, the missing message arrived. Yvette. I'll be in Madrid for work, she wrote. 2 days. If it fits, a coffee. The old coffee. I laughed quietly, leaning against the counter. The past has a perfect nose for cracks. I looked at myself in the hallway mirror. 21, big contract, tangled family, borrowed peace. I felt a subtle warmth, not of the body, but of memory. Sat down on the floor, back to the wall. Closed my eyes. Heard her laugh inside my head. Opened them again. Reread the message. The word coffee glowed like a small lamp in a windowless room. I typed back, tell me the day and time. It wasn't escape. It wasn't provocation. It was will. I knew I didn't want to keep hiding from the things that mattered to me, to my family, to desire itself. A few minutes later, she replied, Saturday, 6 p.m., Café Comercial, Glorieta de Bilbao. Classic. Neutral. With mirrors that remind you exist. I slept better that night. Woke early, trained, ate, stretched. By 5, I was already in Bilbao, watching the packed terraces, the sharp-edged conversations, the bikes weaving between taxis. I stepped into the cafe. It smelled of real coffee and old wood. I waited with a glass of water. When she walked in, I knew nothing was resolved and that it was fine that way. She wore a light coat, a shy expression, as if asking a question without words. We looked at each other. She smiled. Hugged me slowly. No fireworks. Just pulse. We sat. Didn't talk about Italy. Talked about Madrid, how the city teaches you to measure your desires so they don't devour you. You look different, she said. I'm learning to say no, I replied. It's new. I can tell. You like it? It scares me a little. Me too, I admitted. In the mirror on the far wall, I saw two versions of myself, the old one generous and worn out, and the new one lonelier but calm. We toasted with coffee. Outside, Bilbao breathed its Saturday life. There was no music in this part. None was needed. We left Café Commercial without promises. Walked down Fuencarral to Gran Via. Each traffic light felt like a rehearsal for goodbye. We stopped in front of the Carrion building, that eternal postcard corner, the Schweppes sign blazing. She took my hand for a second, brief and healing. No kiss. Just skin that remembers. We looked at each other like two people handing over a compass they're not ready to use yet. We parted at the metro entrance. She went down toward Line 1. I walked toward Callao. I stepped into the big cinema just to buy popcorn and walked out again. I liked that absurd ritual, eating without a movie. I sat in the square, the bowl between my knees, watching tourists raise their arms to frame their photos. The night unfolded without asking me anything. When I got home, another voice message from my mother was waiting. She wasn't crying this time. Her voice was iron flat, like freshly folded clothes. Son, she said. We talked to your sister. She's applying for a student loan. We talked to your brother. They'll do something simpler. Your father's upset. I'm tired. We love you. Come for lunch tomorrow, if you want. I played it twice. If you want. That small freedom sounded like a faucet running after a long drought. I replied. I'll come. But I'm not talking about money. She answered. We won't talk. I went to bed late, whole, heavy with thoughts. I thought about Sunday's match, about a fullback who runs like the world ends with every play. Thought about Yvette, about her brief touch. About that bar in La Latina and its bitter coffees. About my father and his notebook. I didn't feel hate, just a tidy sadness, an emotional shelf where every feeling had its place. That was my victory. I didn't have to win to feel at peace. I just had to not lose myself. The next day I crossed Madrid-Rio. The sun pressed down like an old coin. Kids on scooters, dogs panting, couples rehearsing the absurd choreography of the future. I walked slowly. Checked my phone. A message from Carlos, a photo of him and his fiancée in a smaller, simpler, prettier venue. Caption, we found it. Thanks for nothing. I laughed. Replied with a thumbs up. No irony. Just a gesture. I allowed myself that. As I walked back along Toledo toward Puerta de Toledo, souvenir shops selling Spain for €12, I realized something inside me had changed color. The gray guilt was still there, but beneath it a shy gold was starting to show, like a sunset that decides not to die just yet. Not redemption, not yet. Just a promise. Sometimes that's enough. The rest tells itself. When you stop paying what you don't owe, the world doesn't collapse. It rearranges. Some people drift away. Others learn. You listen to yourself. You make room for small things that never fit before: a nap without an alarm, a coffee without hurry, a slow walk through Chueca at 7, watching the light fracture through the blinds. I won't pretend I've figured everything out. I'll just say that week I caught myself breathing better. And if the whole vacation prank was good for anything, it was this: it taught me a new language, the language of limits. Spoken softly, with few words and a straight back. What came after, the Sunday lunch, the final rules, the last attempt at manipulation wrapped in a trip offer, and my final decision, was the moment I understood it clearly: it's not about being good or bad. It's about not selling yourself. But that's another scene. And there's no joke in that one, only a contract with yourself. The meeting was on a Sunday, at my parents' house. My mother called it a quiet lunch, no reproaches. In my family, that phrase meant strategy session. I went anyway. Not out of desire, but curiosity. I wanted to know how far they'd go. I walked from Lavapis to Usera, crossing the Manzanares over the Praga Bridge. It was midday. Madrid gleamed with that merciless light that leaves no room for shadows. Cars rolled by slowly, and the air smelled of gasoline and Sunday. In my pocket I carried only my keys, my phone, and a calm that had taken me months to build. When I arrived, the smell of warm food hit me like a memory. My mother had made roast beef, rice with peas, and one of her absurd fruit salads. The table was set like we were a catalog family. My father sat at the head, white shirt, no tie. Carol and Carlos already seated, each glued to their phones. Their smiles were decoration. "Son," my mother said, "so good to see you." "Same here," I answered. I sat down. Silence, except for the clinking of cutlery. Carol, always the impatient one, broke it first. "I've been thinking about what you said, and well, I'm looking into scholarships." I nodded. "Good. But it's hard, Mario." "I know. You could help me with the paperwork. If you want, I can show you how. But you do it." My mother cut in, her voice that strange mix of sugar and whip. "Not everything has to be so drastic. If family doesn't help each other, who will?" "Family helps," I said. "But it doesn't use." Carlos put his fork down. "That's quite an Instagram quote, brother." "You could post it," I said without looking up. "It'll get you more likes than the last one." My mother clicked her tongue. "I didn't come to argue," I said, before she could ask. "I came to eat." But that wasn't true. I came to see them with new eyes. To understand them from the outside. What I saw was the same old play: affection is currency, manipulation is routine. After dessert, my father brought out the real topic. He took a manila envelope and placed it on the table. "We want to show you something." Inside, a brochure. Residential Los Pinos, brand new family homes, gated community, pool and gym. My mother looked at me with forced excitement. "Your father and I were thinking of investing. But of course, with your experience and vision." "And your money," I interrupted, not smiling. My father took a long breath. "It's not what you think." "Oh, no?" "It's for everyone. Something we can all have. You already have a house. An old one. This would be for the future. It wouldn't be ours. It'd be mine until I pay it off. Then it'd become everyone's. And we'd start this all over again." Silence. Carol stared at her plate. Carlos pretended to check his phone. My mother spoke softly. "We don't recognize you anymore, Mario. You used to be more manageable?" I asked. "More loving," she corrected. "The love's still there. What's gone is the credit." My father slammed his palm on the table, not hard, but with the authority of someone used to ending things that way. "Don't use that tone again," he said. "What tone?" "The superior one." "It's not superiority, Dad. It's exhaustion." I looked at him, and for the first time, I saw his age creeping in. The wrinkles on his neck, the eyes that no longer commanded but pleaded. I realized he wasn't angry, he was afraid. Afraid that I no longer needed him. Afraid that I'd stopped admiring him. "You know what I think, son," he said after a long silence. "What?" "That you're confusing independence with selfishness." "And you," I said, "are confusing control with love." The knife slipped from someone's hand and clattered to the floor. Carol bent to pick it up, as if she could rescue the moment. My mother's eyes were wet. "Don't talk to your father like that." I am, out of respect, for the first time, I said. Because if I don't say it today, I'll say it worse tomorrow. I stood up. I'm not signing anything, not investing, not financing. This isn't punishment or revenge. It's just an ending. My mother rose too. And what about the family, Mario? Family doesn't disappear. It rearranges. She cried. Carol tried to comfort her, but my father stayed still, staring at the tablecloth. Go, if that's what you want, he said without looking up. I don't want to go. I just want to live without owing you. I took my keys, walked down the hall, and left. The afternoon sun blinded me for a second. The air smelled of grease and the neighbor's flowers. I walked slowly to the corner. When I turned, I saw my mother at the window. She raised her hand barely. I didn't wave back. Not out of anger, but because I needed that gesture to stay suspended, like a comma that waits. That night I couldn't sleep. Not from guilt, but from the hollow left behind when habit departs. I ate dinner alone. Switched on a small lamp. Took out a notebook and wrote what I hadn't known how to say. They didn't raise me to say no. They raised me to say thank you. But endless gratitude turns into debt. And debt, if inherited, kills love. I read it 3 times. It sounded dramatic, but it was true. I thought about Yvette, how she'd listened without needing explanations that last time. I sent her a short message. Are you awake? After a while, she replied. Yes. Just wanted to say thank you. For listening. I always listen, even when you don't understand. I'm starting to. Nothing more. Nothing needed. The next day was match day. We played at home. The stadium was full. When I stepped onto the pitch, the roar hit me like a wave. For the first time in months, I felt light body, mind, everything. I ran without anger, without ghosts. In the 60th minute, I scored. Not by chance, by instinct. I ran toward the stands. Didn't point. Didn't celebrate. Just looked up. And there, among thousands, I saw what I least expected, my father. Alone. No mother, no banners, no photos. Standing still, eyes locked on me. He didn't clap. He just looked. And in his eyes, there wasn't pride. There was something rarer, something cleaner. Acceptance. When the match ended, I searched for him in the stands. He was gone. No message. No call. But that absence didn't weigh anymore. A few days later, my mother wrote, Your father wants to see you. He's at the usual bar. I went. The bar in La Latina was half empty. I found him at the same table, coffee half finished. No hugs. How was the game? He asked. Good. Nice goal. Thanks. Silence. I never meant for you to feel used, Mario, he said at last. I know. But I did. It wasn't malice. It was fear. Fear of losing control. Fear of losing you. You didn't lose me. I just stopped being profitable. He froze. And now, I'm learning to love you without paying you. He nodded, eyes drifting to the street, to the people passing by. Your mother's expecting you Sunday, he said. She's making your favorite dish. I'll come. But no talk of money, he added, echoing my own words. Exactly. We both laughed. Brief, awkward, but real. That night, back at my flat, I stopped in front of the mirror. Saw a young man with tired eyes, but steady. I thought about all the times I'd mistaken generosity for submission. About the gifts, the transfers, the apologies. And how one small word, no, had redrawn the entire geometry of my life. I poured a whiskey. Opened the window. From Lavapiés, the lights of Grand Via shimmered in the distance, like a city glowing for someone else. But for the first time, I didn't want to be there. I wanted to be exactly where I was. Alone. Calm. Free. Because I finally understood something no one teaches you. The silence that follows no isn't punishment. It's peace. There's a sound you only hear once you've turned everything else off. It's the sound of your life settling into place, like a table that's wobbled for years and suddenly, without warning, rests on all four legs. It creaks, complains a little, then stays still. That was my week after meeting my father at the bar, creak and quiet. I went back to training with a head almost empty, not of ideas, but of interference. Doing rondos, feeling the damp Valdebebas grass cling to my ankles, hearing the coach's instructions and following them without translating them into what will they say at home that had a new, clean taste. I stayed behind to cross balls alone 10, 20, 30. Tied and untied my laces as if doing so might somehow bind the rest of my life together. It doesn't, but it helps. The city, of course, didn't change. Madrid has that healthy arrogance, it doesn't reward your tiny triumphs. It ignores you with perfect routine. The bakeries in Lavapiés opened at the same hour, the Chinese grocer still haggled with me over a bag of ice, tourists kept getting lost in Tirso de Molina. I was tempted to feel special, and the city reminded me I'm not. Blessed lesson. Sunday lunch at my mother's was its usual quiet ritual, pots clattering, plates set, that secular mass called Sunday in Usera. She'd made lentils with chorizo, my favorite since I was a meter tall and thought football was just chasing a ball until someone blew a whistle. My father spoke little, he no longer punctuated every phrase with "we're family." Carol cracked a joke about her scholarship, I'm now the most interested student in all of Madrid. We laughed. She did too. Carlos didn't come, sent a message saying he had a meeting with his wedding DJ. I replied, good luck. The healthiest sentence I've ever written. We ate without mentioning money. It was like dismantling a well we'd been digging for years right in the middle of the living room. Before, we'd circle around it so as not to fall in. That Sunday, we simply stepped over it and no one broke a leg. When I left, my mother hugged me differently. Less like a mother demanding, more like a woman accepting her son no longer belongs to her. That nuance carried both relief and sorrow. Maturity never gives you something without taking something else away. The next week drifted quietly until the news that announces itself arrived. Carlos's wedding had changed venue, date, and budget. My mother told me about it the way you read the weather on the radio. Saturday will be sunny in the city center, with a few high clouds. Your brother's wedding will be smaller, more intimate, with fewer guests. The tone made me laugh and softened me. I told her I'd come, if they wanted me there. She said the invitation would arrive by post, like it should. I liked that return to ritual. Formalities don't fix anything, but they dress the wound with a strange kind of dignity. That night, past 10, my phone vibrated with a number I already recognized, Sergio, the family friend who hunts opportunities like a man allergic to sweat. I didn't answer. He sent a long voice note. I hit play, put the phone on the counter, poured some water. Mister, how are you? Calling with love, There's something that's a win-win. A resort in the Canaries, full week, you and the family. Light activation, 2 stories, a reel with your mom, he chuckled, little things. Your dad loved the idea. Said it'd be a way to give back to the family, plus it'd do you good to disconnect. Shall I tell them yes? His tone slid over me like oil. I looked at the fridge, my notes still taped there. Don't promise, don't justify, don't explain twice. I pressed stop. Typed back, no. Another voice note came, shorter, with that syrupy insistence of someone selling salvation door to door. Think of the image, champ. This brings you closer to people. You're in charge of everything. No fine print. I looked out the window. The night air in Embajadores carries unknown voices, laughter you'll never remember, sometimes the sound of a saxophone like a shy animal that appears, then flees. I wrote back, already decided. Silence. Then a final attempt, small this time. You're closing doors, Mario. I smiled. If closing the door on a sponsor means opening my bedroom door and sleeping without anyone swiping a card reader under my pillow, then let them all close. I archived the chat under no. 2 days later, Yvette wrote. She was back in Rome, leaving behind the soft wake of her brief touch in Bilbao. Dreamed we walked down Castellana with no cars. Just trees. It was scary and peaceful. I answered, that's how I feel sometimes, a city, emptied out. She replied with a gray heart. The most honest color. I didn't reach for her like a starving man for bread. I reached for her like you reach for a window, to look out, without leaving. We spoke in short bursts, with space between. She never asked for anything, never tried to fix me. One night she asked if all this boundary setting was making me happy. I don't know about happy, I said. But it's making me real. She didn't reply right away. Minutes later, she sent a photo, her bed, sheets wrinkled, ceiling light on, shadows falling diagonally across the wall. Caption, truth looks like this when no one's around, simple light, but direct. I saved it without lust. It was a reminder. The breaking point came from something that shouldn't have mattered, but did. The family created a new WhatsApp group, Family Vacation 2.0. Icon, some random beach. My name was already there. Nobody asked. First message, a link from Carlos' top 10 all-inclusive Caribbean resorts. Second, a picture of an infinity pool from my mother. Third, an audio from my father. Kids, we talked about it on Sunday. Life's short. We deserve some days together, without tension. Mario, son, you pick the place. We'll fit around it. The important thing is that we're okay. And, well, he coughed, you've got the contacts, it'll be easy. The old language dressed in new clothes. I didn't reply in the heat of it, my version of not headbutting a wall. I flipped the phone face down and went to shower. Water has the decency to turn comedy off. When I came out, towel around my shoulders, I saw a guy in the mirror with messy hair and a clear gaze. I opened the chat. Wrote one thing. Leave the group if you want. I'm leaving now. And I left. No dramatic fanfare. Just that gray, neutral line, Mario left the group. A minute later, a message from my mother. Was that necessary? I breathed deep. Replied. Yes. Minutes later, Carlos called. I didn't answer. Then came the audio. You're so egocentric, man. All because of your little Italy trauma. When are you going to get over it? This was different. Not everything's about your damn offense. I went to the kitchen, opened the freezer, dropped ice in a glass, crick, crack. I answered. It's not trauma. It's method. In my room, I pulled out a folder where I keep the things that matter: contract, mortgage copy, donation receipt for the soup kitchen. I added a new sheet, handwritten, 3 lines, my compass now. Love can't be bought. Guilt doesn't rule. My money is not an argument. I pasted it inside the folder, like lining a book with wrapping paper and a secret inside. Then I laughed. A little theater saves us sometimes, it gives shape to what has none. Back in the living room, my phone was still lighting up, dancing its nervous dance of notifications. I shut it all down. Slid the phone into the drawer like locking away a noisy bird. Then I went out walking. I wandered through Lavapiés to the old tobacco factory, crossed Embajadores, down Ronda de Toledo into the empty Rastro. On weekdays it feels like a town after a fair. Closed stalls, tarps like eyelids, echoes of a life that only wakes up on Sundays. I sat on a step. Listened to my own breathing. Ridiculous, how good it sounded. That wasn't triumph. It was proof. I was alive. That night, I opened my phone for one thing only. Wrote to Yvette. Today I understood something clumsy. Sometimes being alone isn't losing, it's not renting yourself out. She answered, and sometimes it's just fear, dressed as dignity. Which do you think it is for me? I asked. Half and half, she wrote. That's not bad. I stared at the empty screen. Sent her a photo of my window, Madrid's lights tracing their electric map. Caption, sometimes I think the city is half fear, half dignity too. She sent back a ha. Not laughter, just that small tremor of recognition. Then. The trick is knowing which half belongs where. The following days became a string of small, nearly invisible no's. An aunt asking for free musical tickets on Gran Via, can't. A cousin pitching a crypto investment because a friend really knows, not interested. A journalist chasing a headline about the footballer whose family can't handle his success, I don't talk about my family. I turned into a nightclub bouncer with minimalist standards. Nobody seemed to realize that saying no can also be an act of self-love. I wasn't on a crusade. Just guarding the door. There was one afternoon when it all trembled again. I was near Sibile's, leaving a photo shoot for the club. Heavy traffic, tourists crossing on red, a shameless sun overhead. A video came through, Carol, presenting a project in class. She was talking about adult literacy for migrant workers. Confident, clear, radiant in a way I'd never seen. At the end, the professor said, sometimes when they take your cane away, you realize you already knew how to walk. She smiled. So did I, but my eyes felt strange. That video broke me open somewhere else. It made me happy, and at the same time it threw in my face every useless protection I tried to build. That night I wrote to her, proud of you. She replied with a silly emoji, a sparkling heart. It was perfect. Carlos was different. He kept up his quiet public crusade, cryptic captions, photos that only a family would recognize as blades. They didn't hurt anymore, they just tired me. One night he called. I answered. We talked like two adults standing on opposite curbs. I don't get why you can't just help us, man, he said. No greeting. Because then you're not helping me. Helping you with what? With not getting confused. With not thinking my worth is measured by what I pay for. We don't think that. Then learn. He laughed, his usual way of dissolving acid with humor. You're intense, bro. I'm simple. You coming to the wedding? Yes. No drama. No drama. And no envelopes, right? No envelopes. He hung up. I felt a kind of sad relief. What used to be a hug was now a negotiated truce. I accepted the poverty of it. Peace, sometimes, is cheap. Sometimes it costs more. This one was mid-range. I found comfort in a night routine, running along Madrid-Rio, crossing the Arganzuela Bridge, looping back past the greenhouses, finishing by the river's edge to stretch and watch the water flow, unmysterious, constant. At that hour, the city lowers its voice. You see couples reconciling on benches, teenagers kissing like the first humans, a man throwing a stick for his dog again and again. Repetition becomes a kind of prayer. One night, Yvette dropped into the city without warning. I'm in Madrid for 2 hours. Lay over. You around? It came at 7:10 p.m. I told her I was in La Latina. She replied, Café del Nuncio, 20 minutes. I walked fast, not running, not fleeing, just that kind of ordered urgency that belongs to desire under control. El Nuncio was warm, wooden tables, lamps that looked honest. She came in wearing a gray scarf, hair tied up in a way that said she hadn't thought about it. She sat. We didn't hug. Sometimes it's wiser to let the body wait its turn. We ordered 2 cortados. How's your no going? She asked, smiling like someone tired in the right places. Steady. with a few scares. Normal. My family made a WhatsApp group to plan vacations. Didn't ask. Also normal. I left the group. That's new. We laughed. She told a small story from work. I told her that saying no so often had taught me to say yes to the smallest things, to a nap, to peeling potatoes at the soup kitchen, to walking without headphones. You're giving up your job as a professional martyr, she said. I liked the title. Silence stretched comfortably. I asked if she thought I looked different. You look more alone, she said, no cruelty, just observation. But alone like someone who's finally surrounded by what matters. I wanted to touch her hand. I didn't. Self-control, the new muscle. She checked the time. I have to go, she said. Flight to Rome in an hour. We walked together through Plaza de la Paja, down Cava Baja, swallowed a bit by the hum of tapas and laughter. At the corner, she looked at me. That single second, the one where you decide whether to become a story or a possibility. We didn't kiss. She leaned her forehead to mine, minimal, the way animals recognize each other without spectacle. Whispered, "Don't let guilt adopt you." I laughed. Nodded. Watched her go the way you watch a train that doesn't hurt to miss, because you know there's still a station waiting for you. Days later, the club announced a kids' event in the south of the city. I went. Played with them, got nutmegged and laughed at. A 10-year-old, laces undone, asked if it was true I didn't help my family. I told him helping means teaching someone to tie their shoes, not tying them forever. He frowned like that wasn't in any manual. I tied one lace, left the other for him. He ran off, half-tied, completely happy. I saw a metaphor there, too big to say out loud. I kept it. Then came the wedding invitation, by mail, properly done. White, black lettering, no gold trim. I liked it. I confirmed attendance through a tacky website with background music straight out of a greeting card. When the page asked, "Would you like to contribute a gift?" and displayed an IBAN, I closed the tab tenderly. Minutes later, a message from Carlos, "Saw you open the site." Relax, the IBAN thing's automatic. I sent back a stupid sticker. Some battles are won with strategic stupidity. The quiet break came on a flat night, no match, no calls, no noise. I sat on the floor, back against the sofa, all lights off but one. Pulled out my folder and added a fourth line. Don't medicate loneliness with the wrong people. I laughed. I'm my own motivational poster factory now, embarrassing and proud at once. Sat there breathing. Felt the echo of my decisions bounce off the walls. They didn't hurt. It was like hearing the sea inside a glass, soft, steady, no threat. In that echo, an image appeared clear as film, me walking down Gran Via at dawn. Lights still on. Few taxis. A drunk with his shirt half out. Street washed clean by water trucks. Me, not rushing to anyone's house, not seeking permission from anyone's window. Just walking. Body tired from training, mind awake like the mouth of the metro when morning arrives. The phone buzzed once. Message from my father. Sunday roast, 2 p.m. Mom asks if that works for you. I replied, I'll be there at 20 past. A few minutes later. We'll be waiting. Then, saw you at the stadium. Thanks for the goal. I didn't answer. Sometimes silence replying to silence is perfectly balanced. I went to bed early. Dreamed of Yvette on the Puente de Toledo, leaning on the railing, looking at the water. Neither of us spoke. We just were. That was enough. I woke with the calm of an animal that recognizes its own scent. At the roast, my mother's hair was tied back, her dress simple. You came at 20 past, she said, celebrating normality itself. Carol talked about her project. My father worked the grill like there was a trophy at stake that no one would hand out. Carlos said nothing about the wedding. Nobody mentioned vacations. It was normal, the kind that's been carefully rehearsed. Between courses, my mother asked if I'd thought about taking a few days off after the season. Maybe Galicia, she said. Your father loves eating seafood with a view. I looked at her and said something so clean it startled me. If I go alone. I'll pay, of course, but for me. If you go, you go. I'm not organizing. My father looked up, weighed the words, and nodded. It was the most adult gesture I'd seen from him in months. My mother tied the silence neatly, like straightening a curtain. Carol mentioned a concert in Conde Duque. Sunday unfolded like a Sunday with nothing to atone for. On my way home, I crossed Marquez de Vadillo and climbed toward Los Ojos del Puente de Toledo. Stood there a while, watching how the light spills strange over the Manzanares. It's a ridiculous river, sometimes just a thread of water bragging about a royal name. I like it for that. I was a thread once too, pretending to be something bigger. It doesn't weigh anymore. My phone rang. Yvette. Can you talk? Yeah. I wanted to hear a normal voice. My voice wants to sound normal too. Normal hurts less? It hurts in order. That's the most we can ask. We stayed in that quiet for long seconds. I told her I dreamed of her on a bridge. She laughed, said hers was a different bridge in Rome, ugly and beloved. We shared 2 small stories. Before hanging up, she said, don't become your family's judge. Just be the border. I looked at the thick water below. Borders don't move, I said. But they can be soft at the edges. Then don't be rubber, she said. Be stone with moss. We hung up. I walked home with a strange thought blooming. I don't need a love story to be okay. I just need a story that doesn't cost me myself. That night I wrote the 5th line on the paper inside the folder. Being a border isn't about expelling, it's about defining where you begin. I left it there, like someone hammering a sign into the sand, not to stop the tide, just to mark the shore. That's what the quiet break really is, not fighting, just outlining. It's not epic. There's no soundtrack. Or maybe there is, and it's only the sound of the city finally keeping pace with your steps. What came next? The wedding, the family's last tug disguised as a peaceful trip, my decision to shut the faucet for good, and then that match I played with a joy I'd almost forgotten arrived like the seasons do once you stop checking the forecast. They surprise you less, because you're already ready. And if you asked me what changed exactly, I'd say the most boring and most honest thing. I understood I wasn't born to be a bank or a savior. That I'm not a card. That guilt doesn't pay interest. And that my no doesn't kill affection, it just puts it back where it belongs. Madrid, with its neon life and bare breath, its smell of bread and gasoline, knew it before I did. It whispered it at every corner, everyone buys their own round. I just learned the rule late. Everything was in place for the ending I no longer feared. Freedom doesn't shout, it breathes. And for the first time, I was breathing without asking permission. The final scene hadn't happened yet. But I was already walking toward it with a new kind of step, one that didn't sound like chains or guilt. If you listen closely, it sounded like something simple. Peace. There are farewells that don't sound like goodbyes, only like breathing. Carlos's wedding was one of those. The venue was out by the Carretera de Toledo, a modest place with a garden and a white awning, nothing extravagant, just enough. I arrived alone, no new suit, just a gray jacket that already knew my shoulders. I carried an envelope empty, only for the gesture. Not a challenge, a symbol. This time I was coming as a brother, not as a sponsor. The day was clear, cloudless, the kind of sunlight Madrid gives you in April. At the door, a woman from catering offered me a drink. I said not yet. Inside, the music was low, the flowers smelled of effort. Familiar faces, cousins, friends, that extended family that always has more opinions than solutions. The greetings were polite, almost bureaucratic. You look great, Mario. How's training going? Don't see you on TV much these days. I smiled just enough, the survivor's smile. Carlos saw me and came over. Blue suit, burgundy tie, dark circles under his eyes. A man happy in fragments. You came, he said. I told you I would. I thought you wouldn't keep my word. Yeah. I'm learning to only keep the promises I want to, I said. He laughed, relieved. Hugged me. It was a strange hug, not reconciliation, not distance, something quieter, like a silent pact. As if we'd both understood that neither of us needed to be right for the other to be at peace. My mother appeared soon after, flawless, hair pinned back, eyes shining in that way mother's eyes only shine on two occasions, when a child gets married, or when a child gets sick. She took my arm. Thank you for coming, my love. I wouldn't miss it. Your father's outside smoking. He says today he's allowed. Let him enjoy it. We walked in together. When the music rose and everyone turned to watch the bride, I looked at my mother instead. She was crying, but not from guilt. Crying like someone finally setting a weight down. And I realized that, in her own way, she had learned something too. Motherhood isn't a debt, it's a presence. Dinner softened everything. Carol told me about her new scholarship, about a project with an NGO teaching Spanish to migrant adults. I don't know why, but I feel useful, she said. I told her that feeling is the closest thing to happiness I know. She smiled. In her eyes there was reconciliation without apology. That was enough. My father sat beside me, glass in hand. You did right to come, he said. I did what I had to. Still not talking about money? Still. Good. I've learned with you, it's either straight talk or no talk. Mutual lesson. Then let's drink to that. We clinked glasses. The sound was clean, brief, conclusive. There was dancing, laughter. Carlos took the microphone, gave a clumsy but honest speech. He thanked everyone. When he got to me, he paused. To my brother, thank you. Not for the money, but for being here. That's more than I expected. Applause. I bowed my head, not in shame, in quiet gratitude. That sentence sealed a wound that had been open for months. I stepped outside for a while. The air smelled of wet grass. I watched the lights of the hall from the garden, listened to the celebration without needing to join it. I sat on a low wall, poured myself the drink I'd refused earlier. Sipped it slowly, counting the seconds before silence. My mother came out. Your father's gone, she said. He's tired. Yes. But at peace. And you? Tired too. But yes. She touched my cheek. Sometimes I think you learned to live alone too early. And sometimes I think you taught me that without meaning to. Could be. I love you, Mom. I love you too, son. But I don't understand you anymore. You don't have to. Just love me. We stood there, quiet, watching the lights move inside. Sometimes love is exactly that, staying silent just long enough not to break what's finally mended. Days later, the calendar pulled me back into rhythm. Training. Press. City. But something in me had stopped running away. Madrid was still the same, the hum of Gran Via, the mixed sense of Lavapiés, the underground rumble at Sol, the bars of Malesana with their eternal hangover elegance. Only now, for the first time, the city didn't swallow me. It walked beside me, not over me. One morning, early, before training, I decided to visit the stadium alone. An empty Bernabeu breathes in a way that unnerves you. The seats don't applaud, they watch. I walked along the sideline, stopped at the penalty area, right where I'd scored that goal my father had seen from the stands. I closed my eyes. Listened to my breath bounce off the rows of seats, the echo that always felt truer than any ovation. I thought of the boy I used to be, who dreamed of standing here without knowing that the real match would be played elsewhere. I sat down on the grass, unhurried. And for the first time, I didn't think of Yvette, or my family, or money. I thought of myself. Of what remains after everything falls apart and you decide not to rebuild it the same way. The sun began to filter through the roof. Everything turned gold. That light reminded me of something I'd forgotten. Silence isn't always loneliness, sometimes it's freedom, shaped like breath. I stood up. Walked toward the tunnel. The echo of my steps sounded as if the whole city were answering from above. That night, back in my flat in Lavapies, I opened the folder where I'd written my rules. I added one more. Don't be afraid to live the life you chose alone. I closed the folder. Put it away in the drawer. Not as an ending, just a reminder. Then I poured myself a glass of wine. Turned off the lights. Stood by the window, watching Madrid stretched out bright, flawed, alive. Taxis climbed up embajadors, laughter spilled from the bars, someone sang badly in the street. Everything was the same. Only now, it didn't hurt. Because I finally understood that freedom isn't breaking away from everything. It's refusing to sell yourself just to keep everything intact. And if anyone ever asks how that story ended, I'll say it didn't. It just changed tempo. That I'm still here, in Madrid running, learning, loving in my own way. Without guilt. Without contracts. Without debts I never chose. I'm no longer trying to reconcile with them or with anyone. Only with that boy who once paid for a family vacation thinking he was buying love. I don't judge him now. I understand him. Because without his naivete, I'd never have reached this golden silence. Where, at last, I can breathe. And in this new calm, one that neither applauds nor demands. Only one truth remains. I didn't forgive them. I just stopped needing to be understood. And in that silence, I began to live.